Part of the mission of RFK Jr. is something that is not getting enough attention. And I want to pay attention to it because I want to encourage it. You're to encourage behavior you want to see more of. Let's just step back for a second from politics and look at something that's just about as big as God. Nothing is as big as God, just about, because it relates to common blessings. So water, sunshine, air, food. These are all things that God provides to the righteous and the unrighteous. And let's do this thing. There are people who hate the phrase unpack, and I get it because it's a silly phrase. But let's unpack this. Let's start with water. Water, of course, is life. You die without it. In 3 days without water, you're dead. Water, of course, is important for plants as well because they also die without it. Water security is life security. Food is something you die without in about 30 to 90 days, depending on how much fat reserves you have. You'll eventually die. Your brain will give in. You'll have a heart attack. Something will happen to you. Starving to death doesn't mean that you just die. It means you get organ failure. So food is life security, and food is sustained by water and air, etc. You could then say, if we're going to look at our nation, those two things are also national security. Because you think about sometimes the tactic of warfare, and this goes way back. It wasn't Stalin who invented starving people to death. If you think about armies that are invading a country, they may decide to burn all the farmland behind them. They may decide to kill all the farm animals, any of the food animals that they find. There was the March to the Sea in the Civil War. And there were accusations of that, of just burning everything down. Then there's, of course, the acts of starving out your enemy, right? Why waste the bullets? That's what Stalin did. So if we were to look at all of this, you could say all these things are national security. Well, it is a fact that the people who ran Joe Biden and others, Obama, and I think that they even got away with this during President Trump's first term because I don't think people really strictly paying attention to this. People and organizations and nations that do not mean us well are buying farmland. And they're buying it to use it for things that are, A, going to be very, very profitable for them, and B, very harmful to us. One example are the carbon dioxide sequestering pipelines that Kristi Noem sold out in her state to let the Chinese Communist Party and South Korea and big-time leftists steal farmland in order to build carbon dioxide pipelines. Go back to this analysis. When they get the farmlands, what else do they get? Water rights. Okay, water is life. It's life for us and plants. It is therefore life for food. Water security and food security are national security issues. Because if you're going to destroy a country, why not start at the food level? As Chinese Communist Party owns entities, or at least approved entities, and big-time leftists who do not mean us well are purchasing farmland and the inherent water rights, people like Bill Gates and other billionaires are simply purchasing water rights. I have a friend of mine who is a very, very wealthy man, truly entrepreneurial, nothing to do with government. In fact, he can't stand government. He's about as libertarian as they come, and he's becoming an actual conservative. His brother left the practice of intellectual property rights, and he'd made a mint as an intellectual property attorney out of Hollywood and then expanded into software property rights, IP rights. He left that behind to invest in water rights. The investor best known in the movie The Big Short is the guy who was really aggressively shorting housing stocks. He is investing in almost only water rights because it's a precious resource. It's the most precious resource. Energy is required to process and deliver these things, food and water. Energy is required to turn some foods into something we can eat. It's required in order to cook foods so that we don't get sick. So water, food, and energy are life security, and they are national security. This isn't getting enough attention. Remember that whole thing control the healthcare, control the people. Well, if you've controlled their food and water and taken it away from them, there ain't no healthcare. So I want to talk about something that RFK Jr. is doing. And of course, he's going to get attacked for this because the Democrats are going to put themselves on the side against RFK Jr. because RFK Jr. is aligned with Trump. Control the food, control the people, control the healthcare, control the people. I'll play this thing from RFK Jr. for you in just a second. Your healthcare is being controlled. It's being controlled by entities who do not mean you well. There are things you're not allowed to do for your own body, or at least if you do them, you have to pay on your own. It's only recently that you could put gym memberships on health savings accounts, and there's nothing better for you than exercise in combination to eating right, etc. But if you've been catastrophically injured, let's say that you've had a traumatic brain injury or you have been hobbled with a back situation, which is, they're saying it's only surgery in case of the traumatic brain injury. They've told you, you're just done. Just get used to being in a wheelchair. They won't allow you to use real live stem cells from placentas and umbilical cords, not the dead stem cells they use in America. And you can still go get it done. It's a quick flight to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, to a beautiful resort and incredible healthcare providers, most of whom are trained in America. In fact, some of them are Harvard-certified surgeons. It's called Renew.Healthcare, RENUE.Healthcare. I've been there twice. I'm going there a third time, and we've sent a bunch of listeners down there and viewers, and we've got great results. It's RENUE.Healthcare. Stop letting entities that don't mean you well control your healthcare, control your future. RFK Jr. is a guy with a lot on his plate. He's come out to say he's going to ban the mRNA injections. He's finally said that. Thomas Massie says do it now. He's going to ban glyphosates in foods and harmful chemicals. He's also out to defend farmers. And this is a fantastic time for farmers because RFK Jr. has said he's going to defend them. When he says something like this, we need to pay attention to it because RFK Jr.'s statement stands in stark contrast to what we're being told by Democrats. That he's just all about banning the injections, that he's all about banning the vaccines. But RFK Jr. is not just about that. If you look at his whole body of work, it's about health. His whole body of work is about maintaining access to things that the party's taken away from us, the party. Because remember this, Mitch McConnell and others had plenty of time to stop the Chinese Communist Party from buying up farmland, from buying up access to water rights. They had all sorts of time for that. But it takes someone like RFK Jr. to make this a reality. And he went and did a little promo video. I think he wants some eyes on him. I think he still intends to run for president. So he dressed up, got into his best tan thing. And by the way, someone, when I was in Seattle, was noticing that I still tan. Yeah, I still do. But I'm not quite as tan as RFK Jr. He went outside the Department of Agriculture to make a statement about something he's going to be doing. And it's almost a commercial. When we run this, I'm going to compare it to a montage of Democrats because we do a contrast and compare thing here. Because it's side by side of what the Democrats are doing, with the side by side of what they're trying is they want transparency. Well, so do I. I'd like transparency in terms of why they're going to be against what you're about to see or hear from RFK Jr.
Hi, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm here outside of the United States Department of Agriculture to tell you about a win-win policy that I'll be pushing in the Trump administration. It's a win for farmers, for consumers, and for the environment. And the purpose is to make America healthy again. America's current ag policy is destroying America's health on every level. It's destroying the economic health of farmers by forcing them to get big or get out. Big corporate farms do just fine, while the small and medium family operators are squeezed to the point of collapse. It also destroys the health of America's soil and water by tilting the playing field in favor of more chemicals, more herbicides, more insecticides, more concentrated monocrops and feedlots. And finally, it destroys the health of consumers. Not only do the chemicals pollute our bodies, the same way that they pollute the soil, but corporate interests have hijacked the USDA's dietary guidelines to make natural, unprocessed foods barely an afterthought. That's one reason why 70% of the American diet now consists of ultra-processed food. We're going to change that. We're going to give farmers an off-ramp from the current system that destroys their health, wrecks the soil, makes Americans sick, and destroys family farms. We're going to rewrite the regulations to give the smaller operators a break.
Brilliant.
We're going to encourage sustainable regenerative farming that can build soil and replenish aquifers. We're going to ban the worst agricultural chemicals that are already prohibited in other countries. And we're going to remove conflicts of interest from the USDA dietary panels and commissions. I've seen some of what America's most innovative regenerative farmers are doing today. They can literally green deserts. They rebuild depleted soils. Wells that had been dry for 30 years start flowing again.
It's absolutely brilliant. And yes, he's promoting RFK Jr. And yes, this requires USDA approval. And hopefully he's going to be able to lead if it's a team of rivals, convince them. People should be applauding this across the political spectrum. Liberals who like the little micro farms in their cities, you've seen these, they should be applauding this. The sustainable food people should be applauding this. People who walk into the natural foods or whatever store that's organic with their canvas bags, which, by the way, aren't that great for the environment, they should be applauding this. Democrats are going to stand against it. Think about this. Democrats have put themselves on the position of being against free speech because literally Hitler was a proponent of free speech. Hitler, who led to the murder of people for speaking against him, who ordered that. Liberals are standing against transparency. We can't have the American people knowing where their money's being spent. They're standing against this tax rebate that President Trump has talked about in terms of finding all this corrupt money that's been stolen from us. They floated the idea, he and Elon Musk, of a $5,000 tax refund to Americans since this money's been stolen. Jasmine Crockett, who somehow got through law school, said she's against that because the government's not in the business of handing out money. Did you hear that? The government, says a radical leftist, is not in the business of handing out money. So they're going to have to move themselves on the side of big agri-farming because they put themselves into the position that says this: if President Trump is for it or anyone who works for him is for it, we have to be against it. We have to oppose everything Orange Man bad favors. RFK Jr., in taking this step to at least encourage small farming, should go a step further. He should absolutely encourage and incentivize every single American with a backyard who can do it to grow food. And we should get a tax rebate for doing it. Because let's go back to this. Water is life. Water is life for us. It's life for plants. And plants are, of course, life for many animals. Water and food, therefore, are life security. And what good is a nation if you're not preserving the lives of the people in the nation? We should be giving tax rebates and encouraging people to grow their own foods and, in fact, to store their own water. Any sane nation would do this. It also is beautiful because it actually recognizes the blessings, the common blessings that God Almighty gave us. Thank you, Lord.